Hey guys, this is Harley Blakeman. Today I want to tell you about one of the most troubling issues I had trying to deal with a criminal record, trying to get back into the workforce. There's a lot of things that make it really hard to convince employers to hire you. For one thing, the most obvious thing is that you have a criminal record, but you can't really do anything about that. So the fact is that individuals with criminal records have to move forward in life. You have to work. You have to have a job, and most people want to move to better positions or better jobs. And to be able to do that, you're going to need to be able to explain your criminal record. So that's the topic that I'm going to be talking about in this video, is the best way to explain your criminal record in an interview. And through trial and error over several years trying to get corporate management positions, I've really kind of etched out what I think is the best practice. And the root of why I think this is the best practice is it causes individuals to look at you more like a human. They feel more empathy for you, and it reduces cognitive dissonance in the conversation. So basically, people aren't as put back by it whenever you explain your criminal record in this way. So let's jump into how we go about doing that. And I summarize it with an acronym, which is CEODC. In my book, I call it the CEODC storyline. And what that stands for is circumstance, ownership, development, and change. So essentially, you want to tell them about your life, the circumstances in your life. What was your life like before making a decision that got you a criminal record? Everyone knows that most people in jail or prison had pretty rough lives before they made that decision. And it's not wrong of you to let people know the circumstances that led up to you making a decision. Now, that is not telling you to avoid ownership. That's why ownership follows it, is you don't want to sound like you're avoiding taking responsibility. After you've explained the circumstances that led up to you making this bad decision, you want to immediately take ownership, because you definitely don't want to seem like you're avoiding taking responsibility. So when you take ownership, you can simply just say, I take ownership for my responsibilities. I do understand that I made a bad decision, and I've learned from that decision. I fully accept what I've done. I just want to move forward. So that's just letting the individual know that you're an adult, you realize that you are accountable for your actions, and that's something that any employer wants to see, is that you know that you're accountable for your actions. Now, next would be development. And development is an interesting part because it's similar to change, but it's more of a mental, cognitive maturity thing. So you want to say, these are the circumstances that led me to my mistake. I take ownership for that mistake, and here's how I've developed because of making that mistake. So a lot of people with criminal records have been punished. They had either time in jail or prison, some had community service, probation, and during that time, you want to be able to explain that you developed as a person. For me, I got closer to my family. I learned a new value for education. I generally just matured a lot when I was incarcerated. Part of that was because I had to. The circumstance I was in, I couldn't be childish. I had to be mature. And when I came out, I was a completely different person. I was much more mature. I was aware of the value of education. And I did not want to break the bond with my family again. So that was development. And then after explaining how you developed mentally and matured, you want to talk about how you are different today than you were then. And that's change. When you talk about change, depending on where you are in your life, if you just got out of jail or prison, or if you're 3 years out, it's going to be very different. But basically, you want to talk about education. I'm in college now, or I got a technical certification, or I volunteer now. I have been full-time employed for 2 years straight. I volunteer at the church. There's a list of things that you could say that show that you are not the person who used to do none of those things. You know, if you have a drug trafficking charge, but now you're saying, I work 60 hours a week and I volunteer at the church on the weekends, that speaks volumes as to who you are today compared to who you were before. So just to recap, when you're in an interview and you have to explain your criminal record, it's a turning point that really decides if you're going to be that person that they want to hire. So I suggest that you use the acronym CEODC, which is explain your circumstance, take ownership for the decision you made, explain how you developed, and then explain how you have changed. Thank you.